Hey guys, I'm Jung. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'll show you how I build this environment using PCG in Unreal Engine 5. This is part 1 where I will walk you through the core PCG setup. In the part 2, we will dive deeper into parameters and more advanced customization. And now, let's get started. First, I'm using a landscape material from Unreal Engine, so you can get it by simply entering your name and email. Make sure to enable the PCG and water plugins so you can follow along with what I'm showing on screen. First, let's take a quick look at what's inside my PCG setup. I have a landscape painting, a river system, road path, a main controller for points as well as stroke and vegetation. Let's start with the river system. I'm using getSpline node here to draw the river path. For the actor section, set it to by class and then select water body river. In the quickly add to project section, I search for water body river to bring in the river Spline tool. If you want to create multiple smaller rivers, so you can enable select multiples in the getSpline node. This is Unreal River System, which gives you a lot of customization options. In the spline sample, so you can control how the spline is sampled, which affects how many points are generated along the spline. The projection node allows you to sample data from the landscape and align the river access to the surface of the terrain. Next, for the river meshes, I customize them using individual assets. Then I group everything into a level instance. Then create PCG data from it. I added it into the system. I think the result look pretty good for me. In the spawn actor node, I set it to by attribute, and the attribute name here is mesh. This is a low branch where I added some custom logic around the river. It let me place additional element along the riverbank, like rocks, bushes, and other vegetation to make the river feel more natural and diverse. Next is the forest main point. First I create a blueprint, then added a spline component inside it. After that I assign a tag called spline forest. Inside the PCG graph, I also created a spline data node and then set the same tag as the one used in the blueprint. This is the spline assembler, so which lets you control how many points are spawned along the spline. Here I'm using this tool to control the spacing of points around the river and the road path. And this is the different node which I use to mask out the road and river from the vegetation spawn point. It also helps exclude the area where I want to place the asset manually. Projection node is used to sample points from the landscape. And finally, I added a reroute node to keep the spline setup clean and organized. This section is for the surrounding area of the river. where I add extra details to make the riverbanks more varied and natural. Next is the apply for the road path, which I use to mark out the path inside the forest. I created the same way using a apply and make sure the tags match between the blueprint apply and the one in the PCG graph. This lower section is used to generate points for spawning assets along the road path, such as leaves and small ground vegetation. So you can see on my screen. You may notice the dead trees here also have grass spawning on the top of them, and that's because in the lower section I add extra nodes to spawn the dead trees along with the additional vegetation on top, which add more detail to the scene. Here is the normal to density node, which filter points based on the surface normal. It allows you to control where assets spawn, like only on the flat surface. And finally, this is where I select the vegetation to spawn on top of the tree wood, adding more variation and detail to the path. Here I group all the ground cover elements together and add the comment to keep things easier to identify. First, I take points from the main forest points, then I add a different node to separate strokes from vegetation. You can follow along here on my screen. Below are the nodes used to spawn the rocks. I mainly start by adding noise to grid points, then filter them to create a more natural and random distribution. Finally, I use a transform node to control the position, rotation, and scale of the rocks. Next, we will move on to the nodes to spawning vegetation. First, we have the larger trees and bushes. Around the larger trees, I generate additional points to spawn boosts around them, which help make the forest feel more natural and realistic. Below that, we have the medium trees and small plants. Using the forest spawn points, we also create a bottom layer with dead roots, fallen branches, and small vegetation. The logic here is similar to what I used for the big trees and bushes. Within the forest point, we have a forest removal apply, which allows us to mark out specific areas of the forest. This is useful for places where we manually place assets. We simply create a apply, assign the appropriate tag, and as you can see on screen, I'm setting it up right here. In the final section, I want to share a useful tool called PCG Paint Landscape. It's a apply that lets you customize the details in area where the camera focuses while still keeping the scene optimized for performance. First, we will start by creating a apply just like before. We use the filter attribute element nodes. For this exam, I will set the target attribute to C because the name of the landscape layer. Now I will switch to landscape mode. Here you can see the different layers like A, B, C, and D. The other attribute names that we use for filtering and when painting. Make sure the name match exactly between the filter attribute node and the landscape layer names, so the system can recognize them correctly. The spawn section works similarly to node we can set up earlier. Right now I'm painting to show that we can also use landscape layers to create more variation in the scene. This allows us to paint and customize specific areas that need more attention or detail. This is the house area where I can mark out the forest, so I can place assets manually for more artistic taste. I'm also selling this project on Gumroad. If you would like to support me, feel free to check it out. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much everyone. This is part 1 of the tutorial. In part 2, we will dive deeper into PCG parameter and more advanced customization. So make sure to stick around. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.